And here's what I suggest you do and invite you to do. Think of the last person that you had that butterfly feeling with, the one you just felt unbelievable chemistry with. Just walked in the room, didn't say a word, and you just went, wow, that's the one. And it's filled with so much chemistry and such big butterflies. Because what you're feeling isn't about them. Your feelings are proof that they touched your earliest wound. Just feels like it's in complete disarray. I want you to know that you can stop defining it as meaning that you're broken, because it's not your fault. It's just emotional software programming. It has nothing to do with you. What if I told you that the butterflies that you call chemistry aren't chemistry at all? What if they're actually the warning sign that you're about to relive the exact same unhealed worst day cycle pain from your past? Now I know just hearing that can make you feel a little scared or defensive or like, no, Kenny, that can't be true, and please don't make that be true. But just stay with me for a minute, because I'm not going to ask you to take my word for it. Instead, I'm going to help you prove it to yourself in your own body. And it's going to take me literally less than a minute to do it. So for your own sake, don't let that fear you might be feeling shut you down and make you click away. And for a deeper reason, here's why. Even if what you call a chemistry is actually your unhealed childhood pain, that still doesn't automatically mean you should run away from the person that has given you those butterflies and you're really attracted to. And it doesn't mean that your attraction always has to end badly. In fact, if you just do a few simple things that I'm going to show you how to do, you can stop repeating that pain and you can transform that intensity into actually a real, deep, lasting connection. So here's my promise to you. By the end of this video, I promise that you're going to know the difference between a real connection and that butterfly feeling that actually is your worst day cycle just getting activated and pulling you back into the past. If you don't slow down, admit the truth, and just try a couple of new strategies. Now, I'm going to prove it to you in a couple of ways. The first one is I'm going to satisfy your intellect. I'm going to do it with neuroscience, because I know the skeptical part in all of us, we need that logical part. But then I'm going to satisfy the most important part, your heart and your body. Because let's face it, you won't believe anything unless you can actually feel it in your gut. And I'm going to give you that feeling. So let's start with your intellect by just talking basic brain science and neuroscience about how every human brain works. And all of our brains are built the same. And they're built to do the exact same thing, to predict and to survive. That's it. Now here's the kicker. It bases all of our adult predictions on our earliest childhood emotional experiences, not our thoughts, not our intellect, our emotional experiences before we even had language. So when your brain was young, before it could even speak, by watching the world around, it learned what love feels like from the people that were closest to you. And then it just turned that feeling into an emotional blueprint it just uses as an adult to predict life. Just, you can think of it like emotional software, all right? Just gets downloaded into you. Now here's the part that shocks most people. This part of your brain doesn't create your relationship blueprint and perfect love based on anything that's good for you or healthy or dysfunctional. It doesn't even process that way. It doesn't even bring it into consideration. It doesn't sit there and go, you know what, that's toxic. Let's not pay attention to that and let's delete it. No, it just downloads whatever it experiences and just files it under, okay, got it. So that's what it looks like, and that's how love's supposed to look. Oh, okay, and that's what it's supposed to feel like. Here's the thing. Now that you're an adult, when it recognizes something familiar, your brain just goes, oh, I've seen those eyes before. That tone, wow, I can feel that. Oh, that Posture. Wow, look at how they own the room. I love the way they move when they walk, those mannerisms. They just have this energy. That's your brain remembering what it felt like to experience all of those events as a child. And people call that chemistry or butterflies. And your brain just runs that old emotional program automatically. You can't stop it. Because our brain's logic is just really simple. It must work. It must be the right program. I'm still alive. That's this part of the brain. It doesn't care right or wrong, good or bad. It just goes, I'm alive, and that's all it's trying to do. Remember, predict and survive. So it figures, toxic must be fine. I'm alive. It doesn't discern the difference, this part of the brain. That's why if you keep chasing butterflies and your love life just feels like it's in complete disarray, I want you to know that you can stop defining it as meaning that you're broken, because it's not your fault. It's just emotional software programming. It has nothing to do with you. So to put it simply, it's just the structure of your brain is the enemy here. It's not you, and it's not the other person, and those people who keep looking the same way. So the good news is you can rewire the emotional blueprint software. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. But before we get there, and before you really believe me, the brain science is okay, I get it, but for me to prove it to you, the only thing that matters and what matters most is your heart and your emotions. Because your mind can argue with the truth, but your heart and your body will always feel the truth. So let's do the easiest proof there is. I'm going to walk you through my simple emotional authenticity method with 3 questions that will get you to feel the truth. So I just invite you to join with me on this. Just right now as you're watching, don't do it later, just sit there. And here's what I suggest you do and invite you to do. Think of the last person that you had that butterfly feeling with. The one you just felt unbelievable chemistry with. Just walked in the room, didn't say a word, and you just went, wow, that's the one. Now, I'm not saying the intellectual person that you should like. I want you to think of the person your body just had to have and really wanted. The one who just made you feel that heat, whether it was in your chest or that pull in your stomach or the charge, whatever it was, just there's a charge in your system that just convinced you that's the one, gotta have that. And now that you have that, here's the key part. I want you to think back to the first moment that chemistry and that certainty started to shift. And you felt something like, uh-oh, they're not fully into me. They might leave. I don't feel secure. I'm confused. I'm starting to feel really powerless about this. I don't know where I stand. Now, I'm not talking about when you fought, and I'm not talking about when they betrayed you or during the breakup. No, way before that. I'm talking about the very first moment your body flinched. Do you remember that moment? Can you feel it? That's the one. Now I want you to ask yourself the first emotional authenticity question. What am I feeling? Not the story of what they did or the explanation, but the real raw feeling. Was it fear? Shame? Panic? Rejection? Invisible? Neglected? Hopeless? Abandoned? Powerless? Longing? Needing? It might be several. But pick the one that feels the strongest, the one that has that really deep body and emotional charge to it. Now ask yourself the second emotional authenticity question. Where do I feel it in my body? And be really specific. Same thing. Is it your chest tightening or your stomach dropping or throat closing? You feel that your face flushing at the fear they're leaving? Maybe your legs just buzzed and went numb. Did your head start to hurt? Or did you go blank? Did you just go numb and collapse in despair? What was it? Again, don't analyze it. Just locate it. Go to the place in your body that feels the most intense. And now here comes the moment I promised you, the one you've been waiting for, because this is the emotional proof. Ask yourself the third emotional authenticity question. What's my earliest memory of having this feeling? When you ask that, there's one of two things that usually happens with every one of my clients. Now, for some of you, almost immediately, poof, childhood memory just pops up. You see your dad walking away when you wanted connection, or your mom smothering you with her emotions after the divorce. Maybe it was a disapproving look of shame from a pastor or a coach or a teacher. Something where you learned emotionally that love isn't safe, that it's conditional, that love is chaotic, and love just comes and goes. Or maybe you have to perform to even receive it. And if that happened, you can feel that, can't you? Now you have your proof. Your butterflies were your worst day cycle emotional blueprint being triggered. You took the unhealed pain from your past, and your brain and body, because it's meant to predict and survive, went, well, I experienced this way back there. I'm alive. Let's do it again. That's the one. Not that one. They're boring. No emotional reaction. I'm only looking for the one I know that I can predict. I've never felt that. I've never seen that. That doesn't feel safe. That does. Even though it ends up in the exact same place as that did. But remember, though, I said two things could happen. For some of you, you just immediately felt resistant. Maybe all three questions, but for sure, question 3 of what's your first memory? Bam, that garage door just slammed. Great Wall of China just went straight up. And you heard yourself say, nope, no way, not going back there. I'm not even going to admit my childhood was filled with anything but perfect love. My parents were great. I didn't have any pain in childhood. Nope, none of that. That's you. That's okay. Because that resistance is also your proof. Because that's the survival persona that you had to develop in your first moment of heartbreak to protect your authentic self and your heart. So for those that had the second reaction, let me help you feel the truth in a way that your survival persona can't even argue with. Now, remember how I said when I brought this up, the Great Wall of China, the garage door slammed. Did you notice how you do the exact same thing? You have the exact same thought and feeling. No, I'm not going there. This isn't true. Childhood was great. You do the exact same pushing away with the person who gives you butterflies. You justify, you condone, you minimize their poor behavior, or you just flat out ignore what's happening. Whether they're pulling away or they're chasing you or they're betraying you or manipulating, whatever it is they do, you use the exact same survival persona strategy. Do you see how, just like when you were a child, you won't allow yourself to feel the truth of what happened back then? And you don't want to feel that it's happening and repeating itself right now. So no matter what your emotional response was to the 3 emotional authenticity questions, whether the memory just popped right up or the resistance showed up, both of them give you that emotional proof I promised you. Now, the pain you feel with the person you have chemistry with, it is the same pain from your childhood that's never been addressed and never healed. And yes, this is also true for the person who has the butterflies experience in chemistry with you. It's just how it works. So neither one of you is bad. Neither one of you is wrong or defective or broken. Remember what I said. We're just programmed. and programs can be rewritten. This is just a software problem. It's not a hard drive issue. Hard drive issue, that would be a concern. You'd be like, oh, I don't know what I can do about this, but it's just software. We can just reprogram that. So all you have here is two worst day cycle emotional blueprints activating at the same time, and both brains quietly saying the same thing. That feels like home. Going to be just as chaotic and hurtful and sad and hopeless and confusing and blank and numb and confusing and all the things I experienced. And this person just matches my earliest emotional definition of love perfectly. And they're predictable. And I know how this is going to end. So you know what? Let's just run the blueprint software now. Say to heck with it, not even going to look at anybody else. This is the one. Now doesn't even happen just metaphorically. This is somatically and emotionally. That's why it's so intense. And it's filled with so much chemistry and such big butterflies. Because what you're feeling isn't about them. Your feelings are proof that they touched your earliest wound. It's your nervous system reliving an old worst day cycle emotional blueprint pattern. And worst of all, society lied to you. And they told you to call this chemistry. Because if society told you the truth, they tell you how the brain and body works, and that butterflies and chemistry aren't automatic proof this person is your person. They might be, but only if you do some things differently so you don't repeat your shared past pain against each other. Isn't that what, look at relationships now. That's all, everyone's just pointing the finger. It's just worst day cycles, sharing past pain with each other. But don't worry. I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm going to show you both how to turn all of that around in just a minute. But first, one of the most important steps out of all of this is that you have to delete the software that society downloaded into all of us. And it says, if it feels intense, it must be real, it must be love. It's garbage, it's a lie. And you have to replace it with truth. Emotional authenticity truth, which just exposed the truth that when you feel butterflies in chemistry, both intellectually and emotionally, it's just intensity. It's your childhood emotional blueprint being activated for both of you. Neither one of you is broken. Neither one of you is defective. You just have a software issue. That's it. That's the signal that you're both experiencing your worst day cycles, nothing more. So they aren't telling you the truth that your emotions and your body aren't attracted to love. What they're attracted to is what they've learned love feels like before you could even think or speak. Now, some of you might kind of be triggered by that and feeling a little bit of, shame or fear at hearing all of that truth. But don't. I keep saying this. I'm doing it for a reason. It's just a software program. That's it. All right? Neither of you is broken or defective. You just need some new emotional software. And like I promised you, before the video ends, I'm going to show you how to begin remapping and rewriting that software. But first, let me take you just one layer deeper, because this is where you start recognizing your worst day cycle pattern in real time and when that worst day cycle blueprint gets activated. Because it almost always starts the same with every client, every person I've ever run across. The first thing that triggers it is you notice something in them has changed. You just feel those familiar childhood feelings in your body. And then without even thinking about it or even choosing it, that survival persona pops up. The one you had to develop as a child, it just kicks in. And it'll usually do one of two things. It'll either chase the hell out of them. So if you're a chaser, you'll know what I'm talking about. You over-explain, you overthink, you do things you don't want to, just hoping it brings them closer. You obsessively think about them and think about strategies to get their attention and get them back. And you minimize and justify their poor behavior. Or you do the opposite. You just shut down, you pull away, You just go cold or get controlling, or you might just start a fight. You argue. You do all of those things so you can create distance and space, because that's the picture you saw in childhood. So it's two different survival strategies, exact same blueprint logic. And the whole time, both of you are sitting there thinking, because of the lies of society, you think you're reacting to each other in this moment as adults, and you're not. What's really happening is that both of you are just reacting to the earliest moment you learned that love can hurt. That's the worst day cycle. It's just still replaying. Now, I know that can be hard to believe, but remember, this is, I talked about not only the science, but the emotional resonance. This is how the brain and emotions work. The brain just repeats its earliest emotional experiences until you're going to have to give it updated emotional software program to run on. So before I show you the steps to start doing that, I just need to calm down the part of you that's probably completely freaking out right now, because I can, hear the typical questions. What most of my clients will say, they'd be like, wait a minute, Kenny. Okay, hold on. So what you're telling me is that if I feel butterflies or intense chemistry, that means this person's my trauma partner and I need to run as fast as I can? That's not what I'm saying, not at all. That's not emotional authenticity anyway. That's just fear disguised as wisdom. And it's actually a survival persona strategy to just try and take control back and keep you stuck, reliving your worst day cycle against yourself. It's kind of a backdoor way it manipulates itself to never see the truth of what's going on. So I want you to know that just because somebody activates your wounds, that doesn't automatically mean that they're wrong for you, okay? But there's one deciding factor, and both of you have complete control over the outcome depending how you go on this deciding factor. It all depends on the question you both ask yourselves when you first meet. So what most people ask themselves is, do we have chemistry? Useless question. The real question is, are we both willing to develop emotional authenticity to overcome our worst day cycles with the authentic self cycle so that we can support each other in rewiring our childhood emotional blueprints and build a love that doesn't hurt? Now, for those of you who are watching, who are married or in a long-term relationship that got started with the butterflies and now everything's gone sour because you're both in your worst day cycles and just dumping that past pain on each other, I just have a simple suggestion. It's just one of you. Send your partner this video and say, there's a question Kenny asked. I don't know how far I'm 10, 20, 15 minutes into this, that Kenny suggests we ask each other. And I want you to hear that. I want us to talk about it in person. And this is the question that I want you to ask. That same one. Are we willing to do what's required to develop emotional authenticity through the authentic self cycle so we can overcome our worst day cycles together? Because if both people choose to commit, you don't have to run from being activated by your worst day cycle. You can actually use it. The two of you can become teachers and healers for each other. Okay, so let's just assume that both of you agreed you're going to just take the journey together. Now, I promised I'd show you how to begin rewiring your software. So here's what it looks like in real life whenever that chemistry hits. Okay, so go back to the time, or think of a future time where the chemistry hits and the same thing happens. They all of a sudden change, something's different, and the fear rises, and those old wounds show up. Well, first thing, don't flee from it, and don't run the old program, all right? Pay attention. Sit down and go, what's my old program? What I normally do? Okay, I'm not going to do that this time. Instead, you're going to plug in the emotional authenticity process, the first 3 questions to get yourself into adulthood and recognize what's going on. And then you're going to ask the 4 questions. You're going to use the the 4 pillars of the authentic self cycle, which are truth, responsibility, healing, and forgiveness. Okay, so let's start with truth. And truth would look like this. You turn to that person you've been building chemistry with, or you started with chemistry and you've been building dating and attraction and connection with. And now that something's triggered, you turn to them or you make time to sit with them and you say, I need to be truthful about something. This is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling fear, afraid, abandoned, neglected, unsure. And this is where I feel it in my body. And this is my earliest memory of having this feeling. It's something called the worst day cycle. And I want you to know about it because I want you to know that I've been making this about you and it's not about you. What I realize now is this is just my blueprint activating. And so do you see what this level of truth does? It ends all the confusion. It ends all the games, all the drama, all the push-pull, all the ghosting and all that junk that everybody uses. So the truth brings your adult, authentic self online. It quiets that shame-based survival persona program from the past that just keeps dragging you back into your childhood and using the same old blueprint that guarantees you end up in failure. Now, once you're in truth, you move into step 2, responsibility. Now, responsibility is empowerment. It's not self-blame or shame. And it just sounds much different than that. What that sounds like is in that same conversation, you say to the person, I'm realizing now that my childhood shaped what I'm feeling right now. And, it's just my responsibility to deal with. And it's my responsibility to not make you pay for the feelings I learned in childhood. And you're not to blame for how my brain has this pattern where it's just addicted to repeating what it knows. And it just instinctively takes the faces and the voices of my childhood and puts them over top of you. And I'm the one who's doing that to myself. You don't even have control over it. That's just how my brain works. But I want you to know I'm committed to healing that past pain that's creating that. I'm learning. It's a software problem. I just have to update the software so it stops doing that, so I can actually see your face and not theirs. Now, your partner joins you. They own how they do the exact same to you. And that's when the two of you join in commitment, a real commitment, something built on a lot more depth and breadth and honesty and connection than any sort of chemistry and butterflies, the love story junk that society has sold us. So can you immediately feel how that just moves both of you off of that, like childhood battlefield where it's just normal dating and relationships. It's just people throwing bombs of past pain at each other. And it just moves you into a shared space where you're joining together and healing and teaching, committing, and just total connection with each other. Now, when you do that, that's when you can move into step 3 of the authentic self cycle, healing. This is where you start using emotional authenticity to rewire your blueprints together. You're joining in this. Now, you're also going to have to learn some other techniques, like my 10-step process to give the pain back to the original people we got this blueprint from. That's also, we're going to have to do some reading and take classes and work with professionals. It doesn't have to be me, but it's going to have to be somebody. And we're going to have to learn to heal and heal that past pain and replace that faulty emotional blueprint and the software that's been destroying our lives with something that actually works for us. So we're not trapped chasing or detaching from the people we have chemistry with. So when you work with, living in truth and taking responsibility and doing the healing work long enough, you don't even have to make step 4 of the authentic self cycle. You don't really have to do anything. It just sort of happens. And that's forgiveness. Because when we take all of those steps, forgiveness happens inside of us. It just releases that old injury from the past. So it stops choosing our partners for us, because now we're in our authentic adult self, because we have a process to do that, one that society never taught us to do. So now you're not just pretending it didn't hurt, or you're not letting them off the hook if they hurt you, because they're going to have to do repair work, but you are releasing it. And yes, I have actual processes to teach all of this. And in other videos, we can talk about that. I want to give you just this for right now, because what I want you to hear is that forgiveness really, at least in this context, is most of all being able to forgive yourself. Because now you can see how many times, think of all the relationships you've had, whether they were short or long. Now that you know the truth of how the brain and body works, and how the worst day cycle works, and how emotions work, you can see the reason they were all disastrous is two people just running their worst day cycle, old emotional blueprints, reliving the pain from the past against each other. So neither one of you are at fault. Society never taught you the truth about chemistry and attraction and butterflies. You've been lied to for centuries. Now, remember I said you'd have total power and control over your outcome. But that depends on your own choice. So I'm going to take a story, and we're going to look at how things end up depending on which pathway you choose. It's just same chemistry, same person, same blueprint activation, but two distinct different outcomes. So let's look at the first path. All right? The worst day cycle path. And this is the one where you deny the logic of how your brain works that I laid out, the neuroscience. And you deny how you felt in your body when your heart got activated, when I proved to you that chemistry and butterflies are proof that whenever you're attracted to somebody and they're attracted to you, you're both just running a faulty childhood emotional program that needs updating. And so you meet someone and you feel the rush and then you feel the fear, but you don't name it. You don't locate it in your body. You don't trace it back to the origin. You just do what you've always done. You chase them, you over-explain, you try to get clarity, or you become smaller, or try to become better in their eyes, whatever it is. You just become what you think will finally keep them from leaving. Or you do the opposite. You go cold and withdraw and punish them, get passive aggressive, or you detach, or you just act like you don't care. Whatever it is, you don't get closer. You just recreate the exact same, both of you, whichever direction, you just recreate the exact same childhood feeling of confusion and powerlessness and hopelessness. Saying the same ending, the same phrases. What did I do wrong? Why can't I just be enough? When will I find somebody? I'm so sick of these jerks. I've had it with dating. I've had it with relationships. I'll never have one again. And so the relationship just ends the way your blueprint expects, with you feeling like love is something you almost had, but you could never hold it. That's pathway one. That's what you've been doing your whole life. That's how everybody lives their life. Now here's a potential second ending. Remember, I said your outcome all depends on your choice. You can choose that, and that's the reality you're going to get the rest of your life. You're welcome to it. Or you have the option of the authentic self ending. Same situation, same fears, same rush of chemicals and worries, but this time you pause. And instead of letting that survival persona jump in and run the show, you just start rewiring your emotional blueprint with emotional authenticity. And you ask yourself the three simple questions. What am I feeling? Where in my body do I feel it? What's my earliest memory of having this feeling? And now you're no longer confused. You're conscious and connected. You see the truth right away. You see that what you're reacting to isn't them, it's them, right? And so you go to them and you tell them the truth, not to attack them or not as a demand, just truth. This is what's happening inside of me. This is really old stuff. And it didn't start here and didn't start with you. And I really want to stay present, not just for you, but for me. But I do want to stay present with us instead of just turning this into my old worst day cycle. And then you move to step 2 of the authentic self cycle, and you take active responsibility and you say, look, I'm not going to make you pay for my childhood. I'm committed to doing the healing work and facing the pain from my past so I don't see them every time I look at you. Now, I just want to ask you if you're willing to do this work with me. Now, if they say yes, you don't run. You both dig in. You develop the skills and tools of emotional authenticity, the authentic self cycle, and you just join into reprogramming your emotional blueprints together. And so you just both heal in real time, and the relationship becomes a place where your blueprint finally gets rewritten. Not because either of you is perfect, but because you're both committed to truth and responsibility and healing and forgiveness. Now, some of you are going, yeah, but what if they say no? Okay. Well, because of what you learned, you don't chase. You don't abandon yourself. You don't activate the worst day cycle program in you. You don't beg for clarity or shut down and start fights or argue or demand or try and convince them. You leave cleanly. You just leave. Because your authentic self does not ever negotiate for your worth. So there it is. You have 2 paths. You have 2 choices. 2 different outcomes that you have total power and control to create. Which one do you want? It's pretty simple. So let's wrap this up, because I know this has been a lot. I know when I ran into all this and saw the truth of what I was doing to myself when I had attraction, kind of felt like an assault. All right? But then I had to get into truth. It's just a program. It wasn't a choice. It's the way the brain works. That's not my fault. So if you're like most of my clients, the first time you hear this, you're probably kind of having one of 2 reactions. And some of you are just immediately going, oh my God, this makes perfect sense. Why haven't I heard this before? Why hasn't society taught me? I can see it clearly, and I can see how it was never my fault. I'm not damaged or broken. I was just programmed. And yeah, I can change my programming. I'm excited. This is really straightforward. All I need to do is update my hardware with emotional authenticity and the authentic self cycle and just develop new emotional software. And my brain will just instinctively stop picking my trauma partner and start choosing people that my heart actually wants, that'll work with me, not against me. Now, for others, the exact opposite happened. Your survival persona just jumped up and has a ton of resistance to all of this. You may not even be watching anymore. But if you are, deep down is probably saying things like, this just can't be true. I don't want this to be true. My childhood was perfect. It had to be perfect. Or if it's true, then it means it's all my fault. And I'm to blame. And I was always the problem all along. And I'm useless, and I'm damaged, and I'm broken, and I'm stupid. All that shame. Or just tries to avoid the whole thing by saying, you're just blaming parents. You're just out here blaming parents. That's all you're doing. Whatever your version is. All I ask is that you notice what those thoughts and feelings are doing. Notice how they're trying to assassinate who you are. And notice how much anger and disbelief is in them. So if that's you, I really need you to hear this. Even if you're not ready to hear it today. None of those thoughts and feelings are true. It is not your fault. You are not to blame. You are not broken, and you are not damaged. And it's perfectly fine if none of this feels true yet. And I'm not asking you to change, and I'm not asking you to blame your parents. And this may not feel true for right now. And it may not feel true to you for a very long time. And if that happens, that's okay. It doesn't mean you're failing or you're falling behind. It just means your survival persona is doing its job. A damn good job. But I want you to know something really important. I want to talk behind that survival persona. those voices you're hearing that are so shaming and so belittling and so afraid, they're not yours. Those voices are the voices of the unhealed shame and pain that you witnessed, that was dumped into you, that you had to swallow and your brain had to take on as that's the emotional program of love and connection. That's what I got from my perfectly imperfect caregivers. Not because they were evil, but because society lied to them too and never taught them any of this. So for the hurt child inside of this person, inside of you, who's still struggling, who still wants to argue with me and not accept any of this, I know that you think holding on to that survival persona is the only way you'll finally be seen or loved or taken care of. And I also know you think it protects you. And it's a pretty strong belief because look, you're still here. It did. Remember how the brain works? Predict and survive. That's why I call it a survival persona. The brain instantly creates it. So you have every right to go, look, this works. I'm alive. Because it did work. You're still here. And look at what you've accomplished with that. You got this far. It did its job. It kept you alive. It was not a mistake. It was a brilliant, life-saving strategy that a child developed. That's impressive. But I just ask you to look at something. Can you just see that you deserve more than surviving? Are you open to considering that you deserve to thrive? And can you also see that that brilliant strategy that worked back in childhood wonderfully, it's not working in the adult world? In fact, can you see that it keeps you reliving the exact same pain you're desperately trying to avoid? But I'm not here to force you into anything. I'm just saying, in your own time, when you're ready, you can let this go. I just want you to know that you don't have to carry this pain any longer. And I promise you that when the time is right and you do let it go, most of what you're fearing about how much it will hurt and how hard it will be, it just isn't true. I can tell you that when I went through the exact same process, and with the thousands of clients I've worked with, all of us have had the exact same reaction. Yeah, scared to death to start, but once we do, it's like this wall just drops. Instantly, all the things we feared, the exact opposite happened. We felt relief. We felt safe, really excited, pure joy. But most of all, the biggest feeling was lighter. We were lighter because we weren't carrying the pain from the past anymore. We weren't carrying their pain anymore. Now, I know this will be hard to believe, but it's true. We ended up feeling closer to the people who hurt us, to the people we wanted to love us, even if they never did anything and they never changed. So, there it is. Now you know the truth about attraction and chemistry and butterflies that society never told you. And you have a choice. You can choose between two emotional blueprint paths. You can stay stuck in the old one, or you can remap it into a new one. But whichever path you take, I want you to just say this one last time. You are not broken. You are just programmed. So when you're ready, you can rewrite your program. Now, if you want more information about my emotional authenticity method and the authentic self cycle, you can check out my playlists and watch more videos. There are detailed descriptions on my website of the worst day cycle, authentic self cycle, emotional authenticity method. You can learn a lot more about them if you're still skeptical. Now, for those of you who are like, yeah, this is sounding true to me, and you want to go deeper, just check out my books. Your Journey to Success and Your Journey to Being Yourself. If you decide to do that, Your Journey to Success is the one you want to start with, because That lays out the groundwork, and your journey to being yourself takes all of those concepts to a much deeper level and gets into all of this. Now, other people might be really ready to take responsibility and ready to do the healing work. Well, if that's where you find yourself, you can check out my online university of classes or schedule a private session. But whatever path feels right for you, you can find all of the links just down in the description below. But I want you to know that even if you don't do anything else, at least now you can stop worshiping society's faulty definition of chemistry and considering it truth. And you can stop calling your blueprint love. And you can start choosing a relationship that becomes healing, not just intensity and hurtful repetition. But to achieve that, you can only do it if you commit to yourself to develop emotional authenticity and living the authentic self cycle of truth, responsibility, healing, and forgiveness. But I'll tell you, when you do that, that's when your type stops being your trauma, and instead, they become your transformation.